All right, we're going to start a new series. It's going to be a little bit like the Woman of Samaria series, except I want to incorporate some of the, I just did a video on searching and using words and finding their context in the Torah, searching from the beginning, as I like to call it. And we're going to use, we're going to start anyways with Acts chapter 7. So New Testament, book of Acts chapter 7. And here Stephen is recalling some of the history of Israel, and he is showing how the patriarchs and Moses are prototypes of Christ. So a few months ago I used the study skill of searching from the beginning here, because here in verse 13 I noticed a phrase, and the phrase caught my attention because I'd seen that phrase in other places in the scriptures, especially in the Book of Mormon. And so that's why I thought it was interesting that Acts was using this phrase in the context of the Joseph story. This is what he says starting in verse 11. Now there came a dearth over all the land of Egypt and Canaan, and great affliction, and our fathers found no sustenance. But when Jacob heard that there was corn in Egypt, he sent our fathers first. At the second time, Joseph was made known to his brethren, and Joseph's kindred was made known unto Pharaoh. Then sent Joseph and called his father Jacob to him, and all his kindred, fourscore and souls. So Jacob went down to Egypt and died, he and our fathers. Okay, so if you noticed, Stephen uses the phrase the second time to refer to the second time his brothers went to Egypt to get corn. But as you can tell from the rest of the chapter, Stephen is using these Old Testament characters and stories to show that Christ is the center of that Old Testament narrative, and that the patriarchs are prototypes of Christ. So I wanted to investigate this one further. So I took that phrase the second time and I did a search to see, does Moses actually use that phrase in Genesis? And he does. So if you do a word search, especially if you have I really love the LDS Gospel Library app for this particular reason, is you can search a phrase, and then there's a filter bar, and you can scroll all the way over to the right, and there's a button that says exact phrase. And if you hit that button, it will only give you results that have the exact phrase you're looking for. And then if you filter out just the scriptures, it'll give you all the scriptures in order that have that exact phrase. That is a super handy tool. It eliminates a lot of unnecessary work, and really helps narrow down what you're looking for. So if you do that, you'll find that the phrase the second time is used in the Joseph story in Genesis chapter 42, I believe. So we'll go there. 42 and verse maybe it's 43. Oh, sorry, 43. So go over one chapter. Okay, so it's found in verse 10 of 43. The context of the chapter is Jacob is persuaded to send his son Benjamin to Egypt with his brothers. Joseph's brothers show respect to him, and they all eat and drink together. So in verse 10 is where we find the phrase. It says, "For except we had lingered, surely now we had returned this second time." Okay, so the context of that verse in particular is the brothers tell their father, we would have already gone back, basically, but the guy who's there, the man, told us not to come unless we bring our brother. And of course, Jacob doesn't like that idea because he doesn't want to lose his son. I don't think he'd want to lose any of his sons, but especially his sons from Rachel. And so they're talking about going back. So I had two questions. Is how does this second time of them going back and being with Joseph a second time, how is that a prototype of Christ? How is Joseph a prototype of Christ? And what is this story about? Is there an allegory? Is this a parable of something bigger? And what's interesting is that for any Christian, it's easy to think, well, yeah, if Joseph is a prototype of Christ and there's this second meeting with him and his brothers, then that's the second coming. And I agree with that to an extent. The Jews say that there is no reference to a second coming of the Messiah, of the Mashiach. And I agree with them to an extent. I don't totally agree with both, but I feel like this story about Joseph and his brothers coming into Egypt is probably one of the most, one of the best representations of, number one, who Jesus Christ is and the role he fulfills, and who his brothers are and the role they fulfill, and how those two roles are connected in the context of God's whole plan. So there's your introduction. So to keep going, now that we understand kind of where we're at, we need to go to the beginning of the Joseph story and learn who he is, who he represents and why, and how the story is possibly an allegory for things that will happen to future Israel. All right, so the beginning of the story, we need to go all the way to Genesis 37. Yeah, so we're going to go through quite a few chapters. Okay, so Genesis 37 starts out, Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger in the land of Canaan. And then it gives, these are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. So they must have been doing some naughty things. It says, Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. So what is that? There's a little bit of symbolism there. So let's go to Sepharia, because I want to know. So recently I learned about there's two words that represent love, and one, Jacob loved. Yes, to love. Okay. Jacob loved Joseph more than all his children. So this is very similar to our word love, except it's not about feeling. In Hebrew, it's all about action. And which is why it's followed up with, because he was the son of his old age, he made him a coat of many colors. That's one representation of how Jacob loved Joseph more than his brothers. He did these kinds of things for him. And this coat, if we look in some of these Jewish commentaries, it doesn't necessarily translate to many colors. It's actually it's like a coat of stripes. It's like the best way to put it. Let me see if I can find the word. Also tunic. Let's see. A tunic. So a tunic, an undergarment, a long shirt-like garment, usually of linen. And let's look at some of the commentaries. So if we look at the commentaries on this, these are Jewish commentaries, because I don't want to know what Gentiles think about this coat. I want to know what the Jews think about this coat. It's old age. All right. Somewhere in here they mention, okay, here we go. So here's one about the garment. It says that the term that is translated coat of many colors, this guy gives another translation that says an embroidered garment. That's it. But somewhere, I can't remember where it is, where they say it was the type of garment that was almost like a ritual garment. It was a sacred garment that was given to him. All right. So Jacob loves Joseph more than his other brothers. And when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him, and could not speak peaceably unto him. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose, and also stood upright, and behold, your sheaves stood round about, and made obeisance to my sheaf. And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us? Or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. So what would this have to do with Christ? Well, this is just speculation on my part, but him having the dream, and what his dream about is about something that's going to happen in the future. So in my mind, this is like a prototype of Christ's being foreordained in the pre-existence to perform the role that he would perform. And consequently, Christ didn't come in the beginning of time, he came in the meridian of time. And so he's like a younger brother, even though he is going to reign over his brothers and have dominion over them. So that's our start. I think we're going to stop there with Joseph's dreams, and I'll try and get the next video going here pretty soon. Let me know in the comments what you think his dreams could represent in him being a prototype for Christ. If you have an idea, let me know in the comments. If not, I'll see you soon anyways. Thanks.